What's up guys, Everything Apple Pro here, and I'm proud to introduce to you Apple's 2018 lineup. In this video, I'm going to go ahead and cover with you everything that will change in this year's iPhone, up to what we know right now and the new model. We're going to cover that one extensively because I promised you guys a render and concept of it, and now we've come through with the Bro King, and we're going to be showing you the new 6.1-inch LCD iPhone model in our rendition, as well as the updated iPhone 10 and 10 Plus design. And by the way, there's a very interesting change that just came to surface that will be happening on this year's iPhones. They won't be totally the same as the iPhone 10 in 2017. There will be external differences, and it's actually a very good change. So let's get into what to expect from Apple's iPhone lineup in 2018 as far as we know right now and everything in between. So the point of this video is I just wanted to take all of the chaotic rumors and bring them together updated in one area so you guys can understand what Apple's got cooking for later this year. Now, this design that we're showing you in this video is far from confirmed. Again, this is our rendition of it. There haven't been any part leaks, not much aside from the iPhone 10 Plus model, so we don't have much to go on. We had to use our imagination. So we will be adjusting it as more and more leaks come out later this year. But I gotta tell you, Apple is really having things on lockdown this year. I mean, there is not much to go off of. Now, most interestingly and most recently, there has surfaced a rumor from ET News that insiders have apparently spoken about the design of this year's iPhone, and they're saying that the notch will be shrinking. So the big blob of a notch that's in the middle of your display will actually be getting smaller thanks to several technological advancements. Now, ET News is saying that Apple is likely to combine the infrared blaster and the actual FaceTime camera itself into one system. Now, the entire Face ID system is comprised of several different components, so we really don't know how Apple is going to do that. How are they going to combine these very advanced things into one single unit? But if they were to figure it out, which they're saying Apple will, the notch would shrink accordingly. And we rendered what we think it would look like if it were to shrink. We made it a little bit shorter and not as wide. I don't think that this would be a huge and drastic difference. Apple wouldn't make it like 5 millimeters across. You still need an earpiece, you still need a camera, and possibly an additional sensor to the left of the earpiece. You'd essentially be getting rid of one sensor, and that's the infrared sensor. So it is smaller. You'd have a little bit more room for your stuff to the left and right of the status bar. And overall, it is more pleasing just to have a smaller notch up there, even though it's never really bothered me, to be honest. And this one is actually very hard to notice, but we've adjusted it in our renders accordingly. The new iPhones this year might actually have thinner bezels going around the display. Thus, you'd be getting more screen and less bezels. So this source, ET News, is claiming that all three models will have Face ID function, and it is heard that there will be less bezel and smaller notch design. Now, I just covered the smaller notch design, but there actually may be a thinner bezel going around the edge of the phone. I don't think that this one is necessarily large. It's really tiny, but it could be even smaller. And as this little schematic shows, we've basically adjusted for it. It's made it a tiny bit smaller. Maybe some advancements in the organic LED displays have allowed for this to happen. I don't think it's necessarily, something that I need, but it could be getting smaller according to the source. And the interesting thing about this notch is that it was actually supposed to happen in 2019. ET News in January was reporting that insider sources were claiming Apple would be reducing the notch by combining the infrared sensor and camera in 2019. So for some reason, they've accelerated that and made it happen this year. Maybe an advancement in technology, maybe people are just losing interest and the iPhone 10 sales aren't selling very well because of the notch somewhat. So Apple wants to accelerate their design. And eventually, the interesting thing that this article says is that later in 2019, Apple is planning to completely remove the top notch. So we'll have just a clean slate of a design, something that we actually showed up in some way earlier concepts on my channel. And it would definitely look really cool. The technology to make it happen, Apple has the patents for it. They'd basically just be making holes in the organic LED display and shoving the sensors in there. So it wouldn't completely be a flush design, but it wouldn't be interrupted by sensors and the earpiece and whatnot. So eventually, Apple's end game is to make a completely flat slab of glass with no interruptions, just all display. And this is actually Johnny Ive's vision in an interview that he was talking about years ago. So it's very interesting to see that everything is heading there still. A completely flat slab, just a clean iPhone front and back is Apple's end game, and hopefully remove the notch for the camera itself so that'll be completely flush as well. And something I mentioned in one of my earlier videos, there might actually be a gold color for this year's iPhone lineup. Just wanted to reiterate that there may be a new option. For some reason, Apple wasn't originally able to release a gold color for the 10 because they had issues on it, not on the 8 and 8 Plus for whatever reason. So this year, we might actually get a new color for the iPhone 10 and 10 Plus. And this housing shading leak, which is most likely fake, gives us a pretty good idea of what that could look like. The shading is a little bit different from the 8 and 8 Plus series, but still, it does look kind of cool. I would have definitely chosen a gold iPhone 10 if that was an option, but in order to differentiate it from this year's lineup, Apple's probably going to have a new color, new look, less notch and all. It won't be a huge update, but it will be enough to get a lot of customers that were waiting on the refresh over. And just for fun, we rendered up this purple housing on the iPhone 2018 series, inspired by the Samsung Galaxy S9, and I know probably won't like it, but we just wanted to see what that would look like in Apple's terms, because Samsung and Apple usually shuffle around some colors once in a while, and I think it looks interesting, not something I would use. The product red that's rumored to happen would probably be way more appealing for me, so just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, so let's talk about that new iPhone model. It's supposed to be a 6.1-inch iPhone that'll fall in perfectly between the iPhone 10 and the larger mammoth iPhone 10 Plus series. So this will be sort of a middle option, and it will completely replace the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, which right now aren't selling too well. A lot of people are opting for the iPhone 7 because it's pretty much the same design but cheaper versus the iPhone 8, and for the people that don't need wireless charging, they go for that one. So Apple is trying to completely look at their lineup in a different light and simplifying things. Replacing the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus with the 6.1-inch could actually be a very smart choice. And Ming-Chi Kuo actually believes this will be the most popular selling iPhone this year. He estimates 100 million units will sell in 2018. Just because for most people the price point will be right, it'll start at $699 and go to $799 while keeping most of the iPhone 10 features that most people care about. So in a nutshell, what this thing will be is it'll be a very similar design to the current iPhone 10 series. It'll still have the notch, it'll have a very similar display, but it actually could look a little bit more futuristic since it's using a full active LCD technology. The bezels could get as thin as 0.5 millimeters, and we've rendered that accordingly in our concept. So it could actually look super sleek, even though it's still sporting an LCD display. It won't be as advanced as the OLEDs, but it'll still look just as good. So it'll look pretty similar, but the back is supposedly going to be made of aluminum. It won't have wireless charging as a result, but this could change because I honestly don't see Apple releasing a phone without wireless charging in 2018. They're going to be breaking apart their lineup way too much. It will have Face ID, so you'll get the same unlock feature as the iPhone 10 series, so Apple won't have to be developing for Touch ID phones in the future anymore. They'll be focusing more on the gesture side things with the iPhone 10 and beyond. Also, it will not have a dual lens camera on the back, and if you've noticed our design, we actually put a spin on it. So this was the Bro King's idea. He basically took the dual lens camera, shifted it on its side, and included the flash and the camera and microphone all in one little unit. And this actually flows with the design very well. I think that this could realistically be something that Apple does, and this was just a guess on our end, so it would be cool if that came to be. I kind of like how it looks, just a little bit different from the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus series. Also on the back, we did the whole antenna band design, so one single antenna band going around. You may not like it, but I think it's something interesting, something different. Since it's a metal back, it will need an antenna band of some sort, and Apple would want to make it look different from the iPhone 7 series. So this will be more of a budget end model, and that'll be represented everywhere on the design as well. Still though, it'll come very close to the iPhone 10 series, and I think it could be a very big seller just because of that cheaper price point while still looking like an iPhone 10. And alongside this iPhone 6.1-inch, Apple will be introducing an all-new iPhone 10 Plus that'll span 6.5 inches in the same format as the current iPhone 10. That's the type of phone I wanted from the beginning. It's the phone that you don't have to sacrifice screen size for, but you still get the organic LED display and all of the goodies on the iPhone 10. So we've also updated our design in order to accommodate the dual SIM card slot. Rumor broke that Apple might actually be offering this dual SIM option in certain areas where it's very popular, and that's usually in Asian and European countries. A lot of people like to have the option of switching networks and so on. So it'd be really cool to have that, and because of the larger size of the iPhone 10 Plus series, you'd have room for it. And let's take a look inside of this thing, because we've rendered up some really cool internal shots, and I'm actually very proud of the Bro King on this one. He did a very good job. So inside, we're looking at an Apple A12 chip. Believe it or not, this will be a huge boost over the Apple A11 currently used in the iPhone 10, just because Apple is actually stepping down a nanometer size from 10 nanometer to 7 nanometer. TSMC has actually released the specifications on their 7 nanometer chips, and they're saying that we can expect a 20% increase in performance with a 40% reduction in actual power usage. So not only will you be getting a faster phone, you'll actually be getting a more efficient one as well. And this will be the first time Apple has used 7 nanometers for their chips. The iPhone 10 is using a 10 nanometer currently, so it's going to save a little bit of space, but most importantly, power efficiency. Now, to compensate for that extra 20% performance gain, here's a benchmark that I've roughly created, and we're looking at a 20% increase, which would be about close to 6,000 on the single core score and 12,000 on the multi-core score. That is monstrous. I mean, the Samsung Galaxy S9, mine personally, got about 2,200 on the single core score and almost 8,000 on the multi. So this one would be well ahead of that. And look at that iOS 12. Can't wait for that. iOS 12 on these phones will be amazing. I mean, I think they'll be optimized for it. It'll be the fastest, most reliable iOS ever. And that combined with new hardware is always very cool. And also 4 gigabytes of RAM. So we've included a chip in there just to give you a little visual on that. It's not usually labeled like that, but 4 gigabytes of RAM will be standard on the iPhone 10 and 10 Plus series. The 6.1 inch will be getting 3. If you've seen my S9 versus iPhone 10 speed test video, you know that the iPhone 10 has a problem when it comes to reloading apps. If you're a heavy user and you do a lot of power intensive things, the iPhone is going to clear out a lot of older apps and you have to reload them when going back into them through the app switcher, or if you just haven't used them in a little while. The S9 doesn't have this issue because it has 6 gigabytes of RAM. That is incredible, the S9 Plus anyways, and the iPhone definitely needs to catch up in the RAM game. So Apple is stepping up the RAM to 4 gigabytes from 3, and with Apple's optimization, I think they could definitely fix the reloading issue on the current iPhone 10 series. And lastly, on the inside, we've made an adjustment to the battery. Previously, the battery was split into 2 sections. There was a power controller on each section of the battery. It was still an L shape, but it wasn't a solid L shape. Rumor has broke that Apple will be using a solid L shape in the new 10 and 10 Plus series, and thus gaining an additional 10% capacity or battery density. So it just have one battery controller at the very end as we imagined it, not necessarily there. We don't know what that could look like until a battery image does leak, but that's just how we envision it. Also get this, the iPhone 10 Plus series will be getting roughly an additional 25% battery capacity. So if you thought the iPhone 10 battery was good right now, the iPhone 10 Plus will have an even larger battery versus this guy, better improvements inside. So this could be the most battery efficient iPhone ever. I'm really excited for that. Anyways, just want to say thanks for watching, guys. That is everything we know about this year's lineup. And of course, I'll be updating these videos as more and more stuff comes out. It's just there really hasn't been much to go off at this point. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for any and all news. Peace.